how is it going, Trailblazers? So, the version 4.5 beta v3 update is finally here, and while there weren't any massive reworks this time around, both Robin Summeretto and Aventurine Waveflare did receive some pretty meaningful adjustments. Overall, I'd say both characters came out of this beta cycle looking even stronger than before, especially Aventurine, who continues to shift further into being one of the premier supports for Elation teams. So with that said, let's go over everything that changed. We'll start off with Robin Summeretto. Compared to the previous beta version, most of her base kit remained exactly the same, with the majority of the changes focusing on her Eidolons alongside a couple of quality-of-life improvements. Starting with her technique, it now grants the entire team a 20% action advance at the start of battle in addition to its existing effects. This is a really nice addition since it helps your team get moving immediately without requiring any extra setup, making Robin feel even smoother to use in Memory of Chaos and other endgame content. Next up is her A2 trace. The critical damage scaling provided through Vibes has been buffed from 1% per stack to 1.5% per stack, meaning the maximum amount of critical damage she can provide has increased quite noticeably. This gives Robin even more offensive support potential while allowing her to push your team's damage even higher. Now moving on to the biggest changes, her Eidolons have been completely reshuffled. Her old E2 effect has now been moved down to E1, meaning players only need one extra copy to unlock her true damage recording mechanic instead of needing 3. This is honestly one of the biggest wins from this beta, since one of her strongest power spikes is now much more accessible. Meanwhile, her new E2 now grants 20% all-type resistance penetration while also absorbing the previous Vibes' quality-of-life effects that were originally spread across different Eidolons. Essentially, what was previously locked behind E6 is now available much earlier. Finally, her E6 has been completely redesigned. Instead of providing resistance penetration, it now doubles the damage multiplier of her Memo Sprite skill by 100%, giving Whales a much stronger damage-focused capstone Eidolon. As for her signature light cone, it did receive one small nerf. The entry action advance has been reduced from 40% down to 30%. It's not a massive loss since every other part of the light cone remains unchanged, but it's still worth keeping in mind if you're planning to pull for it. Overall, I'd say Robin definitely came out ahead this beta. Moving her strongest Eidolon effects much earlier into her investment path is a huge improvement for low spenders, while the extra critical damage scaling and new technique buff further strengthen what was already shaping up to be an excellent support. Now moving on to Aventurine Waveflare, and honestly, I think he's the biggest winner of this beta update. His overall role has shifted even further away from being a selfish damage dealer and much more towards becoming a support and DPS hybrid. Starting with his base stats, his attack has increased from 427 to 485, while his speed has gone from 103 to 107. To compensate, both his HP and defense have been reduced slightly. Personally, I think this is a worthwhile trade since speed is one of the most valuable stats for supports, allowing him to take turns more frequently and keep his buffs active more consistently. Looking at his A2 trace, the speed requirement to activate his elation scaling has been lowered from 160 speed to 140 speed. This makes building him significantly easier, especially for players who don't have perfect speed relics. His A4 trace also received one of the biggest changes. Previously, Aventurine only increased his own elation by 100%. Now, while he's on the field, all allies gain 20% elation, while Aventurine himself still receives an additional 80%, keeping his personal total at 100%. This is a massive improvement since he's now contributing meaningful T-wide buffs instead of only boosting himself, making him considerably more valuable in dedicated elation teams. His A6 trace has also been buffed. Previously, the triggered 48% critical damage bonus only applied to AVENTURINE himself. Now that same buff applies to the entire team for 3 turns, giving your entire lineup another powerful offensive boost. Finally, his E4 has also been improved. Instead of only allowing AVENTURINE himself to ignore 18% defense, using his skill now grants the entire team 18% defense ignore for 3 turns. Again, this is another change that pushes him even further into the role of a premium offensive support, with more of his kit now benefiting the entire team rather than just his own damage. Overall, I'd say version 4.5 Beta V3 was a very positive update for both characters. Robin didn't receive many direct numerical buffs, but the Eidolon reshuffle is a massive improvement for anyone planning to invest into her, especially since her strongest effects are now available much earlier. Meanwhile, AVENTURINE continues getting stronger with almost every beta revision. Nearly all of his important buffs have now become T-wide effects, making him an even better partner for future Elation characters and giving him a much more clearly defined role within the meta. Of course, this is still beta information, so everything we've discussed today is still subject to change before version 4.5 officially releases. But anyway, that's pretty much it for this video. Let me know what you think about these latest beta changes down in the comments below. And as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.